Hi ladies, today I have what I believe is one of the most powerful videos you will ever watch, whether you understand that today or not. Today I want to share about our beliefs, habits and addictions that are altering our nervous system, our hormones and our metabolism. So this really will be perfect for you if you're someone who's like quite busy, you're on the go, maybe you feel uncomfortable doing absolutely nothing, you put everyone else first. If you have fat storage around the tummy, this is going to really tap into that. If you do everything right, like you're living a healthy life and you still feel tired, if you can't sleep, maybe wake up about 2 o'clock in the morning, if you've got digestive issues, reproductive issues, basically this is going to cover like anything that you're not happy with in your body. This is going to cover it, absolutely. And we can tend to feel like we're just trapped in a cycle of not knowing what's kind of going wrong and not really also having the time and space to really help ourselves either. So once we get this nailed, you will actually turn on organs that have been shut down. You will switch to fat burning. You will switch on your nervous system that's healing, repairing, regenerating cells, getting rid of old cells. You will just kind of flow with ease and you'll sleep heaps better. You will lose fat. You will gain lots of energy. It's basically whole healing. You'll bounce out of bed in the morning energized. So I want to cover off 2 hormones today and really tap into the nervous system. I want to speak about adrenaline, one of your short-term stress response, and the cortisol. I'm going to do my best to keep it under 10 minutes because this is actually really powerful and I could talk forever about it. So I want to talk about adrenaline to start with, because adrenaline is our fight or flight response, and this hormone is only designed to be in our bodies short term, but what happens is we actually start to live in this way, and it really creates a whole change in our system. So traditionally this was as part of our fight or flight response for things like, let's say, tiger jumps out at you, let's say that you're attacked, then you can basically go into fight or flight mode and get yourself out of danger. Now, these days, our body still responds in fight or flight, but it won't be these things that usually trigger. It'll be things like you opened up your email and suddenly you've got a boss, your boss has given you a deadline that was way shorter than you expected and you start to freak out a little bit. Maybe an unexpected bill comes in and that kind of really gets you going. Maybe a car pulls out in front of you on the motorway and gives you a big fright. So these kind of, short-term response create this fight or flight system as well. Now, the cue that you will notice, and this will be where you will really tap into understanding when your adrenal system's happening, is your heart tends to race, it goes faster, your breath is short and shallow, and you can tend to notice tension within the body as well. Now, when this happens, I want to explain your nervous system. So we've got your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. This is your automatic nervous system, okay? So your automatic nervous system means it happens automatically. So you don't even need to think about it. It just happens. So your parasympathetic is your healing and repair system. This is where, your nails grow, your hair grows, you breathe, your heart beats, it's things that you don't have any control of. They kind of just happen automatically. Your sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response, okay? So these things happen still automatically, but it's in response to danger, basically, and that's where you notice that the pupils dilate. What happens then is also all your blood goes to your arms and legs so that you can run or fight. And in doing so, because this will mobilize glucose. So it's going to bring the glucose out of your stored glycogen, which is in your muscles and liver, which we learned about earlier, 2,000 calories that we can store, dumps your glucose in your blood so you can get a quick sugar rush, and then you can run or fight. Now, you just opened an email from your boss saying your deadline's due. This is what happens. You get a dump, the body goes fight or flight, dumps that sugar into the blood, it rises up, your body is ready to fight or flee. So you're probably not going to fight your boss, you're probably not going to run from your boss, so the body's not going to use this. But then the body's going to release insulin, your fat storing hormones, sweep it up and store it as fat, all while you're sitting there just opening your emails. So this is kind of the system of adrenaline, and this is how it works. And we've got these 2 two parts of our nervous system that is really critical to understand, because we can start to manipulate our hormones, we can start to manipulate our metabolism and our nervous system in order to support the outcomes that we want. So what happens is, if, say, you are in this sort of fight or flight response over long periods of time, generally about a year and sometimes up to 2 years, and of course there's lots of people that do it longer than that, and then that's when we start to get some real damage happening. But basically the body starts to shift into what we call a cortisol dominant state, and this is where the body is basically programmed for survival, and this is because it believes, well, in the old days it would have been like a war or a famine, so it's really good at storing fat, particularly around the tummy when you're cortisol dominant, but it's also not safe. So what tends to happen is our normal flow of cortisol would be, say, let's peak in the first thing in the morning, and it gives you a little bit of a anti-inflammatory hit when in optimal amounts, not too much. And that would normally allow you to bounce out of bed when it's in an optimal amount. When you're in cortisol, like when your adrenals start to crash, that can be really, really low, and that's where people can wake up feeling stiff and sore in the morning, and that's a later stage of adrenal fatigue, and that's where you really need to start taking some serious action, to be honest. But let's say you have this normal cycle of energy, you bounce out of bed in the morning because your cortisol's optimal at this point, and then it starts to drop off as the day goes on, and in the evening melatonin will kick in, so you'll get your sleep hormone, which will allow you to kind of wind down and relax in the evening. Now, people who are cortisol dominant, instead of winding down in the evening, they might feel tired, but then suddenly they get the second wind, or they start to feel a little bit wired, and then it can be really hard to switch off. Like, you might go to bed, you can't stop the brain, you feel a little bit jittery, and it's really hard to go to sleep. So this is when we've got another surge of cortisol that is not meant to be in this amount, and that's suggesting cortisol dominance as well. Also, what can happen is cortisol kind of tapers off, and then it starts to rise again about 2 o'clock in the morning. And for some people who are dominant, this can wake them up about 2 o'clock in the morning. So this is what cortisol dominance can look like. And this is where you've got basically programming that starts to happen over a period of time, where we've literally changed our nervous system, our metabolism, because what happens is when the body's in danger, as it's perceived, it shuts everything down. So with adrenaline, we know all the blood goes to the arms and legs, so you can run or fight. That means it goes away from your digestive system, so it shuts your digestive system down, so you'll have issues like IBS and things like digestive issues. It also shuts down your reproductive system, so fertility issues. Also things like PMS and menopause. If you're not getting any blood to this area, then it's not going to function properly. So this sort of happens with your adrenal response. And then if you keep in mind that if this happens over a long period of time, we start having some real challenges happening within the system. So cortisol prevents melatonin. It really affects your thyroid. So it can downregulate your thyroid. It can downregulate your metabolism because it's really got in the safety mode as opposed to health mode. And I really want to be super clear and say that stress really isn't the stress that we thought it was. What it tends to be is it like catches up on us in disguise. Like I'll say to people, are you stressed? They'll probably say no. Where if we go, okay, well, are you worried? Are you worried about a sick loved one, or your kids, or maybe there's financial problems, maybe there's relationship stress, maybe there's an abusive relationship where you're kind of like walking on eggshells at work or at home, whatever that is. It's like you're in that fight or flight response. Grief is a big one. So people who are grieving over that 1 to 2 year period, I often see that the body's out of balance after that kind of period as well. And it's keeping in mind that over this time, these big shifts are starting to happen within the body, and then therefore it's going to take a little bit of nurturing to bring it back into balance. So some of the things to consider when coming back into balance is we really want to activate the opposite part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So the fight or flight response, yes, we allow it to kind of activate when it needs to, but it's basically burning out at the moment, and it's throwing not only your hormones out of balance, but the rest of the body too. So by activating our parasympathetic nervous system, this is the healing and repair system. This is actually the fat burning system. So it's burning fat, it's healing and repair, it's regenerating new cells, it's getting rid of old damaged cells that so you can bring new ones in. This is where all the magic tends to happen, and this is what we want to activate. Now, depending on whether there's any trauma in the past, PTSD people, this takes a lot of intention to really start shifting, because the programming isn't just, up here, it's all the way down into the cellular memory as well. So I want you to consider a couple of things. So shifting more from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic. What makes your heart race? Okay, is it coffee? Is it sugary drinks? What situations are you responding to? The people, how do people make you feel? What circumstances? What basically do you notice in your body that you perceive as danger? Then you can kind of go, okay, well, what's the automatic thought that came in? Maybe it's, I can't do this. I'm going to fail at this. I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm going to get fired. So these kind of belief or automatic thoughts that come up, and then just sort of having a look, okay, well, where do these thoughts come from? What sort of belief system do you have in place that is leading to you having these thoughts? What old belief systems from childhood, because that's where most of them are established, what belief systems can you review and go, actually, hold on, these aren't true anymore? And how can you just notice the emotions that come up that allow you to sink into this feeling of heart racing, shorter breath? What emotions have been attached to certain thoughts that have allowed you to feel this in the body? But also kind of understanding, well, if that's what sympathetic fight or flight response is, what is for you the opposite? Like, what is the parasympathetic activation? What makes you feel calm? What allows you to breathe, in a safe, deep way? Because this is what happens is when we're breathing deep and long breaths, this is signaling safety to the body, so it can tap into fat. Remember the log? It's going to burn that log. Where if you need to fight or run or flee, you're going to burn the paper because it's a quick burning fuel. It needs to get you out of danger. It doesn't care if you're overweight. It just wants to get you keep you alive. And I think one of the biggest things in this space around the programming that we have is really also looking at our fear of the unknown, because this tends to be the common one where our old programming is based on knowing what's going to happen, and if we didn't know, then this really threatens our survival. These days it doesn't threaten our survival generally, so it's actually starting to be okay and comfortable and feeling safe in the unknown, because that's basically, we don't know. So we're actually starting to learn to sit in that discomfort without having to run around or to avoid that feeling too. The second part I would say would be our addiction to busyness, so our need to please everyone, where when we're busy doing things for other people, we feel good about ourselves, we're happy, which actually reaffirms our worth. And we find that we're actually not comfortable just sitting in the void of not doing. And by helping everyone else, we're feeling of value, of worth, where there's actually a lot of healing to do in the space of not doing and more being. So this is quite a multiple layer approach. And the third part I would say would be flowing in cycles rather than linear. So in our lives, we've been traditionally taught, everything's quite linear, quite, we have to go from A to B to C, and this is the path that we have to take. When things don't work, therefore we get, frustrated, and we feel out of control in some ways as well. And we also feel like we have to work hard all the time, and we feel uncomfortable in the rest. Where if we can start tapping into what I believe is our superpowers, especially as women, is these cycles where we go through these periods of, yes, we can work hard, we can serve other people, but it's the yin and the yang, it's the balance, it's the rest and recharge, as well as the aligned action. So taking the action, absolutely serving other people, but then being able to sit in a space of receiving, of being rather than doing, being able to allow that space of parasympathetic activation where you're replenishing, you're healing, you're connecting, you're aligning. And when you can actually allow that balance and to sit in that beautiful healing space, that's where you'll find your true freedom as well. And weirdly enough, when you are in this space, really connected to your pure essence, time actually expands and you can get more done. Which is like, time is a bit of the enemy of someone who's in this sympathetic fight or flight response. So actually, by resting, by sitting in this presence, you actually allow for more time and you can actually get more stuff done. It's a bit of trusting in the process. The final part is breath. So activating the parasympathetic nervous system, it is an automatic nervous system, so generally you can't access it, but the one way that we can influence it, because breath is part of the automatic nervous system, if we can slow our breath down, if we can do deeper breathing, and if you can do some breath work, this is going to allow you to start consciously and intentionally activating the parasympathetic nervous system and being able to heal, repair, access your fat burning metabolism as well, and shift you out of that glucose burning, shift you out of that flight or flight response that is shutting down all the organs and throwing all your hormones out of balance as well. So lots of information in today's video. I would love to hear what resonates most with you and what action you're going to take this week.